Hey, welcome to the channel, and welcome to another custom Lego tank video. I have yet another custom Lego tank that I have put together that I had astronomical amounts of fun building, and I think is going to be really cool to showcase. But before we get into the actual showcase, I had one thing that I wanted to mention on a previous project that I built, which is this. This is my MS Heavy Greta. She was featured in a video before. Some people may have watched that. If not, no big deal. But I just had one quick mention I wanted to make on it because some people who may have been following my channel or seeing how I did things is I have been building builds for the most part, showcasing them, and then showing tutorials either before or after about how they go together. And in case anyone is looking for the build on this and can't find it, that's because I'm not planning to do one. So this tank was pretty complex to build. I don't think it would be too fun actually to put a tutorial together. And ultimately, this may sound kind of strange, but this is not my favorite tank. I think I've built better tanks than this, and I think I can do better in the future. In short, I kind of need these treads for new projects, and I have to essentially decide, am I going to put it into a tutorial, or am I going to just pull it apart and kind of let it fade into the background? And I think that's what the future of this tank is. So I'm just sort of spinning it around one more time. It was definitely a really fun project, and it was really cool, but it will not be made into tutorials for my channel. So we're all going to say goodbye to Greta, and we're going to move on to my next project, which I am very excited to share, and I think is personally a lot better than this tank. Viewers may note the barnacle tank hedgehogs in the background here. That is a reference to my Plover tank video, and for good reason, because this next tank that I made was actually built on the exact same chassis as the Plover. So I took the chassis of the Plover and I made a new tank hull to sit on top of it, which was fun because that's kind of how tank variations were made in like real life. So I really went down the route of trying to make realism and think, because this tank doesn't actually exist, it's not a real tank, it is technically, it's a custom tank, but it is down the route of something that could still be believable. So this is the newest project. This is my favorite tank so far, I think, out of all the tanks that I've made, which is really saying something, except for maybe my Saint-Chamond, because that one was a lot of fun to put together too. This is the CSV3, the Coastal Support Vehicle 3. The Tide Trundler, that's the name. So yeah, it's built on the same chassis as the Plover, and then it is the hull is completely different, and the interior, because there is an interior, and we will get to that, has been completely redesigned. This is the first time I have done a custom Lego crew. I have a crew also in there, which is, again, was surprising. I managed to fit stuff in there. And then I have it stockpiled with tools and weapons and all kinds of fun stuff. So my somewhat official designation of this tank is a medium. I build a lot of mediums because I feel like they're the easiest to do. They're not too big, they're not too small. They're kind of just right in the middle, which is naturally just like their name. But I tried to do something that was a little bit original because there are so many, like, I would say stereotypical tanks that have like a big head and big wheels and do all these great things. And I love those too. But I wanted to do something that was a little bit weird, sort of, and non-standard. So I made an offset turret, which I really enjoyed doing. I think it makes a really interesting vehicle. Funnily enough, since this gun is so small, it felt sort of something like a universal carrier, but with a gun on it. And I looked at stuff like that, but I kind of wanted to sort of just bend the rules on what the definition of a tank is and make something that is still a really, really cool project, and it's really fun to look at. I kept the exhaust pipes from the Plover. I made them taller actually too, because this also is a coast vehicle, and I figure when it's in water, the engines still need to breathe. So I kept those as well, and features like that. But then aside from that, pretty much from the wheels up, well, even down, even below the wheels, I changed so many things. It is very, very different. So I think I'm going to do what I've done in the other videos before, and I'm going to take all of the outside accessories off. And then we're going to be able to get a chance to look at what just the base vehicle looks like without all the extra clutter on it. So funnily enough, the reason I didn't enjoy the overall finished version of Greta, the other tank, was that I felt like it was too complicated. So when I went about building this tank, I went really with a less is more concept, which is something I have never tried before. Overall, I am tremendously surprised with the result, and I'm very, very happy with the sort of the general conclusion of it all, because I felt like I didn't have to use very complex pieces or very or even lots of different kinds of pieces necessarily to make something that looks, in my opinion, just fantastic. This is the first time ever, documented ever, I have ever done a genuine camouflage pattern, or at least have attempted to. So it's not great, and I will accept all constructive criticism, but I have never done that before. I thought it looked okay for the most part. Just in general, I think that it's a tricky thing to get right, but I think that I did okay for my first camouflage thing, and to sort of try to emulate like dunes or sand and rocks and stuff. I think it looks fairly good. So this is the tank. It has all of these extra accessories that I have put on the front of it and on the edges and the sides and stuff. This is one of the guys. This is my tank commander. He's just kind of a generic guy I put together with like a fisherman's body and like brown pants and stuff too, but he looks pretty cool. He's got a pistol and he's got some field glasses, which is fun too. I've got these scrub brush pieces that remind me of seaweed. I had those on my Plover, as people may remember. I enjoyed putting those on a lot. Shovel, because that's a classic. Then I did this, which is something I had never built before, but essentially tank guns still need to be cleaned like real guns. So they have these big like wire brush plungers kind of that go into the barrel, and they're scrubbed from the outside in. And I thought that was such a unique and fun idea. So making sort of a non-standard tank, I thought it would be fun to make some non-standard tools. So this is kind of a peculiar tool, and I thought it'd be really fun to put that on the outside. I also made a classic conditioning bar that just sits right in the front here. Again, I have done so many detailed log builds before, but I felt like this was just clean and simple, and it didn't overcomplicate things. So that's pretty good right there. And then these are actually very similar. They're the same accessories that were on the back of the other tank, but they're just some really simple jerry cans, some reds and a green, and some machine gun ammo. So I wanted to do an actual machine gun on the whole of the tank. I did not get around to it because I felt like it cluttered it up a little bit too much. But in general, I'm still very happy with it, and I left machine gun ammo as kind of an accessory. There is also a machine gun inside that the squad carries that could be used for that as well. So as far as the actual tank goes, it's got, again, less is more, so I tried not to be super overzealous with it. But yeah, so I made a little window right here, which is fun. It has a black piece back there just to look like a hole, but it actually is a hole too, which is really nice because I think it achieves a really nice effect for that. I didn't really want to do a flat face here because I know that's a kind of asking for like armor-piercing rounds to explode on it and to cut through that. So I was going to do this whole face flat, but I ended up doing this section slanted. But I think it looks good. I like the idea of having sort of a little tower, like this thing is kind of a little tower on top of this this body, so that maybe you could get in this hatch and look around. Somewhere like a beach that, would be deep water or high rocks, you'd have to look over stuff. This hatch does not actually open. This is a dummy hatch just connected to the turret because the turret has no space in it naturally. But both the driver and sort of the commander spot right here do actually open. So there are guys in there as well, which I'll get to. I want to do a full interior showcase because I think this is my best interior I've built. But as far as the outside goes, that's pretty much it. It's a very simple design. It's just splotchy, rock-colored camouflage on sort of a desert body. I started by making the whole thing tan, and then I added the gray afterward. This little blue here is sort of like a paint mark that kind of signifies the division. I only ever did that after I built this guy, though, because he has the blue sleeves, and I thought it would be nice to match his outfit. The wheels are exactly the same wheel system as the Plover, naturally, as I mentioned, which is definitely fun. It saved me a lot of work, though, and I could make sort of a complicated hole on top because the wheels are kind of the hardest thing to build, I feel like, when it comes to tanks. And this was one of my best wheel systems, so I really wanted to sort of preserve that and then keep it somewhat historical to, like, making tanks out of other chassis. I've got some ventilation back here. I know it's tricky to see and my lighting's not great, but I got some ventilation back there for the cab. And then this, again, is also not real. It's a dummy door that is for accessing the engine. So I maybe in a past life, I would have built an actual engine door right on this thing, but I decided in more of these instances, on a simpler tank, I wanted to try to make some like this hatch that was sort of just decorative and really not go overboard with the functional details, because I love the functional details, but when I go crazy with them, I get something that has a lot of holes and a lot of moving pieces, and it's again, generally too complex. So I started with something a little bit simpler, and then I kind of just built off of that. So that's about it. It has this, I'll pluck this off because this doesn't connect to the bottom here. It has this tiny little rotating turret, and I love the angles on this. This was a little bit tricky to get right, actually. I went through a couple different variations of this. But then it's got probably like a little 6 or 8 pounder gun right here, which I just thought was really fun. I tried to make it really long. I didn't like that as much, so I just I left it small. and I think it looks good. If anyone's wondering about this chain back here, I wanted to do a little system in which you stow the gun for sort of like cross-country travel. So I did this thing where the gun rotates all the way around and the chain goes over and it locks it in place so that you can move it around. So I thought that was a fun thing. I had never done something like that before, but now it can travel sort of across, you know, rocky beaches and the gun's not just swinging around. So yeah, so that's the everything for the outside for the most part. It's not too much more complex with that. Again, trying to go simpler. I've made some really complex builds in the past, and I wanted to do one that just kind of speaks for itself. So like, again, fake eye port, fake little hooks on here. I mean, they're real hooks, but fake little details and stuff that just is not going crazy. I considered doing lights on the front of this, sort of like Jeep lights, because I've done a lot of those on my tanks in the past. But I felt like, again, it was just a little bit much. So there's definitely room for improvement. I could add way more things on this. I did want to do a machine gun mount, maybe on the top or maybe on the side here. But again, I decided let's go with something simpler and just see how it turned out. And generally the result is, it's pretty fantastic. I used a very simple smooth plate technique to make the top of this cab completely separatable from the, separatable, is that a word? Completely removable from the body of the tank. And I have not done an interior this detailed, but probably the one that has the most detail as far as my tanks go was the Saint-Chamond tank. But that was a really big tank, and it was more like building the interior of a Lego house. So that was not so bad, but this one I felt like really captured the vibe of a tank because it's so cramped in here. With all that being said, I still feel like I managed to get quite a decent amount of detail inside here, and I'm thoroughly aware that the lighting is bad, and I'm going to try to do some more shots so people can see what's inside here. But yeah, I've crammed in quite a lot of things in here. There's a driver and all the drive controls. I put a gearbox, I put a row of shells, multiple tools, an engine, and then my mechanic/gunner with a machine gun, all in the inside of this tank. So I'm gonna go ahead and fish some of this stuff out of here. I'm not gonna do it on camera because it's probably gonna looks pretty awkward, but you'll get an idea of what you can actually stow in a tank that's even, you know, this is a fairly small tank, but I could fit quite a lot of things, even in kind of a small body. I'm just realizing that all this mess kind of looks like a pretty impressive custom Lego kit. That's kind of just a fun thought. So yeah, in the actual hull of the tank, I have two other people. So this right here is my driver. He's just another guy with the same fishing vest, actually, as this guy. I thought it was nice because they kind of matched, and it looks sort of like, funnily enough, their clothes actually look like a coastline, considering they're driving a tank that's on the beach also, which I thought was fun. And he is, I don't know, he's a pretty straightforward guy. And this is my mechanic/gunner. She just has overalls. I could have gotten a different body for her, but I was pretty happy with the overalls. And she has the little squad machine gun here. This is just a homemade machine gun, something like a World War II grease gun. It doesn't, I don't know, it's okay, it's kind of fun, but I wanted to have them to have a sort of a squad weapon, considering the tank. If the tank broke down, it then wouldn't be any good for anything. So yeah, she's my gunner, my mechanic too. And then I have two tools. These are just little hammer, little wrench, but they also stow in there. And then these shells, these are the same shells using Greta, and they're just kind of extra shells, but I have like a specific shell storage place. Wow, that's hard to say. Kind of down here, which worked pretty well. So this is the actual body of the tank. Again, I will get some better shots later. This is also removable. This is my little engine for this thing. I like having removable pieces that I can customize and play with, sort of like it's an actual Lego kit. So I make stuff like that as well. I considered making the gearbox down there. It's tricky to see. Also removable, but I didn't end up doing that. As far as the actual body of the tank goes, and I can pull this off as well. I actually will pull this off as well. This is just an angled bit for the front of it. But you get a decent idea of sort of what the space is that I'm working with here. So I was actually reading up on the Tiger 1, one of the most famous tanks in the whole world for the most part. And I learned that the Tiger 1 actually had a steering wheel. And I thought that would be fun. I've never made a tank with a steering wheel. They always have like the little tractor, you know, back and forth levers. And I thought it'd be really cool to do a steering wheel. So that's what I did. I did a gearbox up in the front, something like tanks from the Second World War. And then I did just a little driver's seat. The rest of it was mostly just hull space and getting room for this engine in and all that. But yeah, it's a fairly tiny space that I feel like I packed with quite a lot of adventure. So this thing carries a lot of stuff considering how small it is, but I really feel like I managed to capture the actual vibe of a real tank, and including all of the tools and the things that you would even need to just keep it serviced and essentially keep it as a home for the soldiers that were operating it. So the only other thing I didn't feature that I did kind of want to put on these things was some extra track links, because I have a few extra of these black ones. I thought that would be kind of fun. I know there's lots of tanks and stuff historically that used to carry like extra treads on the outside for extra armor. And I thought, oh, that would be kind of fun to do. I couldn't figure out a convenient way to connect it, so that might be a modification in the future. But for now, this is it. And this is the inside of it. I think it looks really good. Again, less is more. I probably would have made this more complex, but I don't think it needs it. I think it looks very good just as it is. And it really gets the job done. It really really speaks to being an armored vehicle and just a tank in general, because ironically I was making tanks that were a little bit too fancy, which is kind of the opposite of what you'd want a tank to be anyway. I am now thoroughly running out of space on my desk here. Okay. I stripped away just some of the walls here just for a quick minute so that people could see kind of just like the spirit of the tank that I was actually trying to build. Because I thought this was really fun. This was a project that I did kind of as I was working on it. But what I would do is take away one of the walls with all of the accessories in and then place the roof back on. And what it did is it gave me a really interesting idea of what life inside something like this may have been. And the hatch doesn't fit on as it's supposed to right here, so I left that spot empty as well. But I really feel like I captured it in the inside. It's very busy, it's very cramped, it's got all this stuff going on, but if it works in perfect unison, it all fits together. So this is just with an instance in which the shells are in, and the mechanic and the driver are all in, of course the engine. But kind of just being able to sort of snugly weave everything all into the body of the tank, which only conveniently carries 2 people. So this guy has to ride kind of on the outside, but he fits okay in one of the hatches. So yeah, this is my newest project. I had so much fun building this interior specifically. I feel like it really does justice to being able to not make something that was too complex, but to be able to kind of do a simple thing very, very well. And I think it's good. I'm really proud of how this kind of just came together. And sort of, you know, again, less is more. I continue to say that, but less was definitely more in this scenario because it didn't make it more complex. It felt like it worked really, really well to do something simpler for this tank. And I'm very, very pleased with the result and so proud to be able to showcase this. So I'm gonna put this all back together if I can manage that. And then we'll get ready to conclude this here. I think the reason I enjoyed building this tank so much more than building some of my other ones is that it just speaks to an air of tank realism, I think, because it, you know, for example, has 4 hatches, 2 of which open. It carries all of these tools. It's got rolling wheels. It's got a moving gun. It's got, you know, controls, it's got a gearbox, it's got an engine, and it fits a whole crew in it, which all of those things just generally are very difficult to do. Not to pat myself on the back too much, but I think overcoming those challenges in really smart ways make something like this, being able to showcase and to build something like this, very, very satisfying. So this is it. This is my newest build. This is the Tide Trundler. It is the CSV3, inspired by the Plover chassis, built on the same Plover chassis. I'm considering maybe doing more of these coastal tanks in the future. I've had a lot of fun sort of with this idea, and I'm thinking about playing up some new ideas. I had an idea for maybe doing a recovery vehicle with like a big like claw on it, and maybe like a crab vehicle or something. I don't know. I thought that might be kind of fun. But I'll see what kind of comes around and just kind of go crazy with it. So naturally, this is my newest custom build. If people enjoyed it, they know what to do. I don't think I have to remind anybody on how YouTube works. But yeah, so this is it. I really appreciate anyone who came along and wanted to check it out and see what I have to build, and I hope y'all have a great day.